This is continuing coverage and the trial of Richard Merritt from the Hidden Killers podcast on the True Crime Today network.
Her cell phone number was 770-378-2989.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to admit State's Exhibit 71 via business record exception to the hearsay rule. This is Ms. Merritt's cell phone records from AT&T.
Any objection? Admitted.
Were you also in touch with the defendant, Richard Merritt?
I was.
All right. And how often were you in communication with him?
Periodically over the years.
All right. And what was that relationship like?
We were cousins.
Do you know what his phone number was back in 2019?
His phone number was area code 404-358-8254.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time I'd move to admit State's Exhibit 70, which is the defendant's cell phone records.
Any objection? Admitted.
And did Richard work?
Richard was an attorney.
All right. And do you know anything about his law practice?
I don't. All I know is that every time we would see him, he'd talk about how well things were going.
Okay. Do you know what kind of law he practiced?
I think he practiced personal injury law, and I think he told me he did some criminal defense.
Do you know whether he worked for a firm?
I think his last affiliation was he was in a firm by himself or with a partner.
And Mr. Jeffrey, do you know whether the defendant was married back in 2019?
He was.
And what was the name of his wife?
His wife's name was Janine.
All right. And do you know her last name?
Menacosi is her name now, her maiden name.
And I want to kind of focus in on what happened in the years prior to 2019. Are you aware of the Cobb County charges against the defendant?
I am.
Okay, how are you familiar with those?
His mother ended up telling me about...
We're not going to go into what she said, but were you familiar with them at the time of her death?
I was.
Okay. And did you know what those charges were?
Yes.
Okay. And what were they?
He was accused of fraud and elder abuse, had several counts of each.
Okay. Before I go any further, there is one thing I forgot to do. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 1. Can you describe what that is?
This is a picture of Shirley Merritt. She was an excellent cook. She was a great baker. She could make a coconut cake that would bring tears to your eyes. And she was just a genuinely sweet person.
Okay. And does that fairly and accurately represent what Shirley looked like in life?
Yes, it does.
I move to admit State's Exhibit 1.
Any objection?
No objection.
Admitted.
All right, we were talking about the Cobb County charges, is that correct?
Yes.
This time I also move to admit State's Exhibit 2, which is a certified copy of the Cobb County indictment and sentence. It's case number 180991 from Cobb County Superior Court.
Any objection?
No objection.
Admitted.
Show page 1 to the jury and page 2. Is this a list of the charges that you were familiar with?
Yes.
Were you aware that the defendant entered a plea to these charges on January 18th of 2019?
Yes.
Were you present during the plea?
No.
When her son was charged, with this list of charges. How did Shirley react?
It broke her heart. She loved both of her sons, and to see Richard throw away his whole life by stealing from clients just broke her heart, knowing that he was going to prison.
Was Shirley an emotional person?
I'm sorry?
Was Shirley emotional?
No.
Okay.
No, Shirley was a very level person.
Okay. And did she ever talk to you, without going into what she said, about how she felt about the charges?
Yes.
Are you familiar with what the sentence was?
Yes.
Okay. And are you aware that there was a turn-in date of February 1st, 2019?
Yes.
Did you communicate with either the defendant or Shirley in the days leading up to that?
Yes.
How did you communicate with them?
Both with phone calls and with texts.
And did you keep screenshots of your text messages with both Shirley and the defendant from the time between January 18th and February 1st of 2019?
I did.
Are you aware of where the defendant was living between those dates?
He was living with his mother.
In that Stone Mountain home?
Correct.
All right, I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 3 and 4. Starting with State's Exhibit 3, what are those?
These are the copies of the screenshots of the text between Richard and I.
And are those actual recordings of the text messages, in fact that they were screenshot from your phone?
Yes, in fact, I've still got the original text on my phone.
And have there been any material alterations or deletions?
No.
Right. And what about State's Exhibit 4? What is that?
These are texts between Shirley and I.
And are those from the same time period between the defendant's plea and his front-end date?
Yes.
All right. And have there been any material alterations or deletions in those?
No.
All right. Move to admit State's Exhibits 3 and 4.
Any objection?
No objection.
Admitted.
I'm going to start by showing the jury State's Exhibit 3, which, as you described, are text messages between you and the defendant. Did you and the defendant and Shirley, what was the plan for February 1st of 2019?
I was aware that he had to turn himself in on February the 1st by 5 o'clock. And I knew that would be very, very difficult on his mother. So Shirley and I and Richard had been texting and talking back and forth that week. And my wife and I decided that we would go over there on February the 1st, and she would stay at home with Shirley, and I would take Richard to report to prison.
And what day of the week is February 1st?
Friday.
And you said that it would be hard on Shirley. Why did you believe it would be hard on Shirley to take her son to the jail?
This whole thing had broken her heart, and just having to take him down to report to be sentenced or to start his sentence in prison, I thought would be too much for her, and that's the reason we decided to go over there and help.
And do you know the approximate distance, or rather the time it would take to get from Shirley's house on Planters Road to the Cobb County Jail?
Given Atlanta traffic, I would guess probably an hour, around 5 o'clock.
Okay. And would you be coming from Birmingham that morning?
Yes.
What time were you supposed supposed to arrive at Shirley's house?
Probably around 2, I think, is what the text messages say. They had things they wanted to do prior to that.
And can you characterize Shirley's text messages in general? And I will move forward to State's Exhibit 4 so that the jury can kind of see what you're talking about.
She wanted to take Richard, but she also was relieved that I was coming over to take him to report to prison.
Okay, well, just in general, Shirley's messages, how did she text?
Shirley did not use teenager abbreviations. She texted in full sentences and paragraphs, and she was trying to explain what was going on.
I'm going to let the jury read some of these. She refers to Mia and Jack in these messages. Who are Mia and Jack?
Mia and Jack are Richard's 2 children.
Or the weekend there?
Pardon?
Shirley's house, were you and Joe planning on spending the night at Shirley's house?
It depended on what Shirley wanted. We knew this was going to be terribly difficult for her. We told her if she wanted us to stay at her home that night, we would. If not, then we would just turn around after I dropped Richard at the Cobb County Courthouse and go back to Birmingham.
I want to focus specifically on what happened on February 1st. Did you drive into the Atlanta area that day?
I did not. I received text messages from Richard and from Shirley asking me not to come over on Friday morning.
I am going to point your attention to State's Exhibit 4, the last page of that. You see that on the screen there?
Yes.
Tell me about this text message that we are looking at from Shirley. Can you read it to the jury, please?
This is where she contacted me, and it says, I mean, everybody can read it. It just says, things are not good here. I can drive into the jail and get myself home without any problem. Richard has some things he has to take care of this morning, so we don't need to leave here before 2 o'clock. That's why he originally said for you to not get here before 1:30. He has a lot of things we need to talk about.
What time did you receive that text message from Shirley?
At 8:39 a.m.
Was that Eastern Standard Time, DeKalb County time, or was that Birmingham time?
That was Central Time, Birmingham.
So what time would that have been in DeKalb County?
That would have been 9:39 in DeKalb County.
And what was your reaction when you received this text message from Shirley?
I was a little disturbed. I didn't know what her state of mind was. I knew this was going to upset her. But I also knew that Shirley was a strong woman and could make up her own mind. And if she was requesting that I not come over, I was going to honor that.
So did you make the decision not to go in that day?
I did. I made the decision I was actually already on the road when I got this, and I turned around and went back home.
Did you also hear from the defendant that morning?
I did.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 3, the last page of that. What time did you hear from the defendant that morning?
That was at 9:25 Central Time.
Okay, and again, what time would that be in Atlanta, in Cobb County time?
10:25.
Okay, and what did the defendant say?
He said, "Thanks again, but as we both told you, she's okay. We need the privacy to talk through some matters. Please call her this weekend to check in. I cannot express how much your help has meant during this nightmare. I'll call you in a few weeks from inside. Love, Rich."
And what was your reaction when you received this text message?
At this point, this was just more confirmation that I was not wanted at Shirley's house and confirmed my decision not to go.
Did you ever try to call either the defendant or Shirley Merritt after receiving either of these text messages?
I tried to call both.
Okay. Why?
No, I'm sorry. After receiving these text messages,
Yes.
No, I did not.
Were you in communication with any other members of the family?
No,
Did you ever hear from Shirley after this?
no,
Okay. And did that raise any concerns for you?
no. She had a whole lot on her plate that day, and I just assumed that she was snowed under, and any communications with me weren't necessary at that point.
Going back to the messages between you and Shirley, it looks like on the last page of Exhibit 4, there is a text from you. It's Friday at 4:17 p.m., which, would that be Central Time?
Yes, it was.
And what time would that be in Eastern Standard Time?
5:17.
Okay. It looks like you tried to reach out to Shirley. It's hard to see what is on that text message. Are you able to tell the jury what you wrote there?
Yeah, hold on, let me pull it up. I can tell you what it says without looking at it, but basically it says, "Call me, please," because I had already received the call that he had cut his bracelet and was running.
Who did you learn that from?
I received a call a couple of minutes before that from Janine that she had gotten a call.
All right, we're not going to go into what Janine said, but do you know about what time you received that call from Janine?
It was, I would say, 10 to 15 minutes after 5 o'clock Eastern time, so 4:15 my time.
Okay. And so when you learned that the defendant had cut off his ankle monitor, what was your reaction?
Pretty much shock that he would do that.
Okay. And do you know about how many times you reached out to Shirley after that?
I tried to call her phone several times, and I sent her that text asking her to call me.
And did you ever hear from her?
No.
And did you reach out to the defendant as well after that?
I tried to reach him as well and got no answer.
Okay. And what was going on in your mind at this point?
It was very confusing. I didn't know what was going on. My main concern at that point was, where was Shirley?
And so what did you do?
I had several more phone calls with Janine and a couple of other family members, and I was aware that they were trying to locate Shirley too, and Richard.
Did you ever call the police in Cobb County?
I did not.
All right. Were you aware of whether anyone else did?
Yes, I was informed that someone had called the DeKalb police to come out and try to enter the home and see if Shirley was in there.
Okay, did you decide to go to the home that night?
I did not that night. It was about, I want to say 9, 10 o'clock, something like that, my time, when I got word that the DeKalb police had gone there and did not have probable cause to make entry.
And we're not going to go into what was said, but you got word that DeKalb County police had been there, and what did you do after that?
After that, I talked to Janine. I said, I need to get into that house. It's late now.
Did you have a key to the house?
No, but Janine did.
Okay, and so what did you agree to do?
I was going to meet Janine and her dad the next morning at about 9 o'clock Eastern time at the entrance to that subdivision to get the key from her to go into the house.
And did you, in fact, drive into DeKalb County on February 2nd?
I did.
About what time did you leave Birmingham that morning?
It was probably 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, my time.
And what time did you arrive in DeKalb County?
It was a few minutes before 9.
And I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 5 and 6. I'm just going to put those up there for a second. When you arrived at the subdivision, did you in fact meet with Janine?
I did, at the entrance to the subdivision.
Did you get the key?
I did.
Okay. And was anybody with you that morning?
No, they wanted to enter the house with me, and I told them no, because I didn't know what I was going to find.
Okay.
And so I took the key and went to the house.
Did you bring anything with you?
I was in my truck, and I also had a weapon.
Why did you bring a weapon?
Because I didn't know what I was going to find inside that house. We knew that Richard was in the wind, but we didn't know where he was. Shirley's car was missing, but he could have gotten back into the house.
And were you familiar with Shirley's house?
Yes.
Looking at Exhibits 5 and 6, what are those photographs of?
The Exhibit 5 is a picture of the front of the house. Exhibit 6 is a picture of the back door where I made entrance.
Do those photographs depict what that house looked like at the time that you arrived on February 2nd?
Yes.
All right, this time I move to admit State's Exhibits 5 and 6.
Any objection?
No objection.
Admitted.
I'm showing the jury State's Exhibit 5. This picture of Shirley's house?
Yes, it is.
Did you go through the front door?
No.
And did you try to go through the front door?
I did. I checked all the doors. All the doors were locked and secured with deadbolts. And so I went around to the back door and made entrance on the next picture through that door.
Okay. Before we get there, how many entrances were there to the house? Do you recall?
There were several because they had several glass doors or French doors on the back, and they each had doorknobs, and I believe there was also another entrance downstairs in the basement through there.
Did you check all of those?
I did.
I'm sorry?
I did.
And what did you find?
All the doors were locked and secured.
Did you see any broken windows?
No.
Did you see anything that you would consider to be evidence of somebody having broken into that house?
No.
Tell me about the garage. Where was the garage located?
If you look at this picture, the garage is over on the left-hand side. The picture that the window at the top is over the garage, and then there is another window into the garage on the far left, and behind the mailbox post is another window.
And was the garage door closed?
Yes, the garage door was down and closed.
Do you know whether Shirley parked her car inside that garage?
Normally she did, yes.
And what kind of car did she drive?
Honestly, I don't remember.
And were there any vehicles in the driveway?
No, mine was the only vehicle.
Okay. And I'm going to show you State Exhibit 6. What is this a photograph of?
That is a picture of the door that I entered on the back of the house in the backyard.
What does that door enter to?
It enters into a little hallway. There is a laundry room and a bathroom off to the right as you go in there.
Why did you decide to go through that door?
I just thought it would be the most convenient to go through.
Why is that?
Just seemed like it, because the first thing I wanted to do was try to locate her, and that gave me an end point on the house to start going through.
Did you knock on any of the doors?
I did not.
And were you able to get into that door using the key?
Yes.
What did you see when you went inside the house?
I walked in and was checking the rooms as I went through there and did not see anything. And then I moved on into the kitchen and the den. And there's also a bedroom on the first floor. Didn't see anything there. Went around to the living room, and there wasn't any, and the dining room, and there wasn't anything there either.
And did you try the door to the garage? Did you go into the garage?
I exited through the garage.
Do you recall if the door that goes into the garage was locked?
Yes.
It was locked?
Yes.
And what did you notice any kind of overturned furniture or signs of struggle?
No, the only thing that I saw was in the bedroom on the first floor, there were bed linens on the floor.
Okay. And did you find Shirley?
Not at that point, I didn't. From there, I proceeded to go upstairs and search the upstairs. Did not locate her there. And then I came back downstairs and was going into the downstairs area, the basement area. I opened the door to the basement area. The door was not locked, but it was shut and the light was off. I went down the steps, and you had to go down and make a turn to the right. And when I made the turn to the right, after I'd flipped the light on, Shirley's body was laying at the bottom.
I'm going to show you State Exhibit 7. What is that?
That is the bottom of the stairs where Shirley was.
And is that how you found Shirley on February 2nd, 2019?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I'd move to admit State Exhibit 7.
Any objection?
No objection.
Admitted.
Mr. Jeffcoat, did you go any closer than this to Shirley's body?
I did. I called her name. She didn't respond. I went down, checked for a pulse. There was none. And at that point, I knew it was a crime scene, and I backed out.
Did you notice anything around her body?
Honestly, no. I wasn't paying any attention to anything else.
Did you move her at all?
No.
And what did you do at that point?
I backed out of there, and I called 911.
Did police arrive?
Yes, I went out, back out through the garage. I raised the garage door and walked out on the driveway, called 911, told them what I'd found, what the circumstances were, and waited on them to come.
How long did it take them to come?
5 minutes, something like that.
And were you there, when they got there?
Yes,
And did you speak to officers?
I did.
Did you ever hear from the defendant after this?
No,
Did you ever reach out to try to get in touch with him?
no,
Have you seen him until today, between then and today?
no.
Thank you, Mr. Gunther.
Good morning.
I'd like to begin talking with you about the text messages.
Okay.
The text messages between you and Shirley, as well as Richard. You were the one who had suggested coming to Georgia to assist with the transportation. Is that right?
That's right.
And you spoke with Shirley about that.
Yes,
And you spoke with Richard about that.
yes,
And when you spoke with Richard about that, he was grateful.
yes,
And he too was concerned about his mom's mental health.
right,
And he was concerned about her driving
right,
when she would be upset.
yes,
Okay? And I'm going to point your direction to what has already been marked as State's Exhibit 3, the text messages between you and Richard. And this gray bubble would be your responses, correct?
The dark blue is me, the light blue is Richard.
Correct. So this is you saying, thank you so much, that's a relief for me, was worried about her. He says, I was too, this makes us all feel better.
No,
So I have the opposite.
you have the opposite, that's correct.
So Richard is actually starting these two bubbles of conversation, expressing his worry. This is what's worried about her.
Well, I said, happy to help make it easier on your mom, I'll be there by 1. He replied, thank you so much, that's a relief for me, was worried about her.
Right, so that's Richard responding, I was worried about her.
Right,
And you and Richard discussed the details of that drive from the Merritt home to the jail, correct?
I think he texted something about stopping to get a cup of coffee on the way, but that's the extent of it.
So you didn't text about timing?
Well, I had already been told not to be there till about 2 o'clock, so I had planned to be there about 1:30 or so.
Okay. So your testimony is that you didn't text with Mr. Merritt about timing?
I don't recall the texture right there in front of you.
Okay. So I will point your direction to the State's Exhibit 3 again. Rich. And here's a discussion. We need to leave by 2 p.m. just to make sure we get across town in traffic. It's about 45 to 60 minutes, 40 miles or so, but it is Atlanta and Super Bowl weekend. Of course, you and Joan, if she wants to come, should stay the night. And here's the reference to the cup of coffee.
Right.
So you and Richard were making plans about timing, right?
Yes.
You had concerns about traffic.
Right.
Which many of us do. And he wanted to make sure that he was there on time.
Right.
Now, you testify about the text that you received, starting with Ms. Merritt at 8:39 a.m. on your phone.
Right.
And this is State Exhibit 4 that's been previously entered. 8:39. We have 2 pages that are a little bit cut off, so I'm going to start with this full page here. And this is the 8:39 text message. Correct. Now, when you took these screenshots, this was when you were at the home of the Merritts, correct?
Correct.
And this was in Georgia.
Yes.
And this 8:39 text, you could just testify about the manner in which Shirley had texted. I believe you texted that she didn't use abbreviations.
Right.
Right? And this text, 8:39, it does not use abbreviations, right?
Right.
We have full words. We have punctuation, right?
Right.
And then your testimony is that you later received the text message from Richard. And these text messages are the change of plans, is that right?
Right.
And that text from Richard was at 9:25. And again, you have a partially cut off text that goes into the full text here. And again, the screenshot that's given to police is taken when you're at the home of the Merritts, correct?
Right. I was sitting in front of it.
And again, he's expressing his concern for his mother.
Yes.
In fact, he's saying, please call her this weekend to check in, right?
Said he'd call me.
Right here, it says, please call her this weekend.
Oh, yes.
to check in." Now, you had testified that you also had discussions prior to this day with both Richard and his mother about these arrangements. And you had been in discussions with her leading up, is that right?
Right.
And one of those discussions before Friday the 21st is an indication from Shirley that she believed that Friday was not going to be a good day for anyone.
Right.
Okay? So she was already anxious.
Of course.
Right? I'm going to pull up that first text, Exhibit 4, and text for Shirley. Friday is not going to be a good day for any of us. And this is days before, not on that Friday, right?
That's correct.
Right. Now, I'd also like to bring your attention to another text message from even before that. January 18th has been entered here today. And States Exhibit 3 had a conversation with Richard on January 18th. Just before you see it. And this is Richard's text, correct, in the gray.
Yes.
This is yours.
Yes.
Richard is indicating back on January 18th, Mom was okay. Stress hadn't eaten, probably dehydrated. She's in bed now and has nothing planned for tomorrow. And you're thanking him for letting you know.
Yes.
So back on January 18th, he was concerned about her health.
Right.
Were you aware of hospitalization right before this?
Yes.
Okay. That was just days before January 18th.
Yes.
And you know that January 18th was the day that Richard was to be entering his plea in a compound case, right?
Right.
So just days before entering that plea, Shirley had been in the hospital.
Right.
Now, I'd like to turn away from these text messages and talk about when you went to the house on February 1st. Now, you testified that you left around 4:30 or 5 o'clock Alabama time, is that right?
Right.
And when you left, you had not heard from Shirley,
No.
and you had not heard from Richard. damage.
No.
At that time, you didn't know about the car and whether it was there or not.
I believe that I was told the night before that Shirley's car was gone, but Rich's car was there, but I'm not real clear on that.
So you're driving from Alabama and you get to Shirley's home. I think you said it was right around 9 o'clock Georgia time.
Right.
And you went and you checked the doors. Well, I should start back up a little bit. You met with Janine Manicosi, who is Richard's ex-wife. Is that right?
Yes.
And her father.
Yes.
And his name is Michael Salvatore. Salvatore, is that right?
Correct.
You met them at the gate of the subdivision?
Wasn't a gate. It was just an entrance to the subdivision. And that's where I told him to meet me.
Okay. So you met with them there, and then you proceeded by yourself to the home?
Yes.
And when you get to the home, I think Ms. Hott asked you, you started to go to the doors.
Yes.
You don't know how many doors are on that home?
I walked all the way around it and rattled every door, and they were all secure.
But you don't know how many doors there are?
Not right offhand, no.
Now you go inside the home, and you're the first person to find Ms. Merritt.
Yes.
And so you find her, you checked her pulse, and she said immediately you decided to leave the house. Is that right?
Right.
And then you called law enforcement.
Right.
You waited for them to come.
Yes.
Right? And you did not try to ascertain who had been at that scene before you.
No.
You didn't try to investigate yourself.
No.
You were not there when Ms. Merritt was killed.
No.
You did not witness that.
I did not.
I have no additional questions. Thank you.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
May the witness be excused.
Yes.
Ms. Wolf-Gruber?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Call your next witness.
And Your Honor, if Mr. Dunco wishes, may he come back in the courtroom?
Yes, yes. You're free to stay in the back of the courtroom if you'd like to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The state calls Janine Manicosi.
To the court.
Yeah, we're going to take a little break.
Ma'am? Ma'am? We need all the jurors to go into the jury room. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. It's a good night.
We'll be in recess for 10 minutes and we'll break for lunch at 12.
You're listening to the trial of Richard Merritt from the Hidden Killers podcast on the True Crime Today network. Press subscribe now and get ad-free episodes by upgrading to our premium experience through Apple Podcasts. More next.